Hey everyone, this is Mike, and a couple of days ago I made a video talking about the future of Destiny 2, where I went over some of the things that they talked about in the reveal stream, both when it came down to the season that just came out, Season of Arrivals, as well as for the upcoming expansions. Now, one of the things I talked about in that video is that in this current season, we actually got a new dungeon. It's something that I definitely was not expecting. I was expecting it to come out with the next expansion if we were gonna get one, but we got one for a season, and the beautiful thing is this dungeon is also free for everyone. So if this video interests you, I'm able to pique your interest, you're interested in trying out Destiny 2 or trying to do this dungeon yourself as well, it is completely free. You don't have to buy the game, you can just use the free-to-play version and you can jump right into this dungeon as well. Well, technically you can't jump right in because this dungeon does have quite the high power level requirement, but once you grind out some gear you can definitely jump into this dungeon if you find a couple of people and then go do it. Or of course you can also try to solo it, but that's gonna be quite difficult. People have already done it a couple of days ago already even, which is quite the achievement, and I'm definitely going to be trying to do it myself as well, because I did do it with the previous dungeon, the Pit of Heresy. I have a couple of solo completions of that one as well as a solo flawless to get that specific, it's not really a title, it's a banner I think it's called, I don't quite know, basically a cool emblem. Oh, that's the name, the emblem. And there is a new emblem for this dungeon as well, and I definitely want to go get it for a couple of reasons. First of all, dungeons, I think they are a fantastic piece of content. I am someone that really enjoys the raid content in Destiny 2, but the problem is I don't have that many friends that play at the moment. At the start of Shadowkeep, quite a few of my Final Fantasy friends jumped in as well. I had a couple of other people that I knew from Discord servers that would jump in because New Light, the game became kind of free to play, so they jumped in as well. But eventually they all kind of stopped playing, and I might actually have some friends coming back to the game, should be a lot of fun. But basically, I don't have that many people that I play with on a regular basis. I have two guys, a friend of mine and his brother, that I usually play with for Trials of Osiris, that kind of stuff. And then also the dungeons and our weekly pinnacle activities like Nightmare Hunts, Mastered Nightfalls, that kind of stuff. And thus, the dungeon is actually a perfect medium for me, because when you do the raids you need 6 people, so we usually just LFG half of the other group, and they have these fun raid encounters and this beautiful raid layers to go explore. Garden of Salvation was a beautiful raid, and I still am going to be doing it later today most likely, in order to get my pinnacle loot from this week, because I haven't gotten it yet. But yeah, so I really enjoy the raids, both for the encounters, for the team play, the teamwork that's involved, and then also just the beautiful environment that you are running through. When it comes down to a dungeon, it is pretty much a more streamlined version of a raid. I would like to call it like Raid Light or something like that, because it's basically a raid cut in half. You still have this amazing environment for you to explore depending on where you are going. For example, in Pit of Heresy, when you're in the first encounter, you can quite literally look down into the pit and see the boss room, and vice versa as well. You can stand in the boss room, look up, and you can see the rest of the environment where you just enters the dungeon as well, which is really cool. And of course, Shattered Throne is a gigantic dungeon as well. And then now with the new one, Prophecy, this one is also very big, especially the run-up from the, I think it's like the third encounter, I think it is, all the way to the boss room. There is the Rainbow Road, as people are calling it, and that is just a massive piece of, well, sparrow riding, so to speak, because you are riding on those, well, on the Rainbow Road basically. But yeah, so it's really cool, definitely really enjoy it, but you still have these different encounters that have kind of, well, not necessarily raid mechanics, but they do require some cooperation of your team. Yes, of course, you can solo all of it, but with some help, things go a long way, of course. This dungeon's mechanics very specifically go about light and darkness, which I think is really cool thematically, because of what is going to be happening later down this year with Beyond Light, where we are going to actually be using the darkness as well and getting a darkness subclass. So definitely looking forward to that, but I think it is a really cool concept, the light and darkness mechanic that they have introduced in this dungeon. I do think that they overused it a little bit, because if I'm not mistaken, in 3 out of 4 of the encounters you are actually using this mechanic, so it gets a little bit stale towards the end. It would have been nice if it was something for like the first mechanic or like the first encounter, then the second one was something different, third one has something different again, and then maybe they add some mechanics together in the final encounter of the fight or something like that, like they did with Pit of Heresy. Pit of Heresy, the first encounter, you got to meet the mini bosses that had to be killed with the sword bearers' swords in different specific ways, and then on the final boss you had to kill all 3 in order to get the orbs to get to the damage phase of the boss. But right here it is a little bit different. The mechanic is overused a little bit in my opinion, but still is a pretty unique mechanic, so it's still a lot of fun. Of course, these are kind of like my first impressions because I've only run the dungeon once at this point. Definitely going to be running it more. I want to do it on my alts. I want to get the gear that's in there because the gear that you can get there is unique to this dungeon as well. And then I'm not talking about just the gear set, but also the weapons. So certain weapons that are in there are going to be the Ikelos weapons from what's it called again? Escalation Protocol from back in Warmind, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what the expansion was called back then, or the DLC. So we got those weapons. We also have 2 armor sets that we can get, a completely new one that is unique to this dungeon, as well as the Year 1 armor set from Trials of the Nine. Now, if you weren't playing back then, currently we have a PvP competitive mode called Trials of Osiris, which is only available on the weekends, starts Friday evening and then runs all the way through Monday. But back in Year 1 of Destiny 2, we also had Trials of the Nine. It was basically kind of the same, it was just a different game type that you were playing Countdown, I believe it is called, instead of Elimination. But it basically functioned the same. You got a card, you played a couple of games, you won either 7 matches or you lost 3, and then depending on your wins that you got, you would go higher and higher into the area of the 9, and if you got Flawless, you also got to go to the final area and receive your piece of Flawless loot, which the loot that you got right there, the gear pieces, looked really cool. The weapons were quite nice as well. Maybe not necessarily stat-wise, although the shotgun was pretty nice, but they mainly looked really cool. I really liked the aesthetic, I really loved the aesthetic of the armor pieces as well. And what is really cool is that we can now farm this Year 1 armor set as well in there, with of course being able to put mods on it, having high stat rolls, that kind of stuff, which you don't have from the collection pieces of course. And then you also have the new armor set that you can go and grind in there as well. So that's definitely why I'm going to be doing it. The armor looks great, so that's definitely why I want it. That's something that they really did quite well this season, the armor sets, except for the one for Titan, I think. But the Warlock and the Hunter sets, which are my 2 main classes that I play, Hunter is my main and then Warlock is my secondary, they both look fantastic, so I'm really happy the way that they look. Definitely going to be grinding out the gear for them. And then of course, also some of the weapons, they are unique to the dungeon itself, so definitely going to be trying to get them. Now, another really cool thing that they did with this dungeon, they just keep doing it right, is the fact that you can actually farm this dungeon. Now, this doesn't mean that you can farm powerful drops, because the first time you do it in a week, you get powerful drops from every encounter, and then you get a pinnacle all the way at the end after you've beaten the final boss. Those will only be there once every week, so you just clear that once a week, you get your powerfuls, you get your pinnacles. But in the previous dungeons that we had, if you go back into them again to, for example, try to go for that solo flawless or something like that, or you're just helping out friends to clear the dungeon, maybe something like that as well, then you would not get loot anymore. You would still get blues out of the chest, I believe, maybe some glimmer, but for the most part you didn't get your legendary engrams anymore, and thus also not your dungeon loot. Now, because this dungeon has unique gear that can only be obtained inside this dungeon, they actually allowed you to farm it. Now, you're not gonna get your powerfuls, as I said before, but you can still just keep running it as much as you want every single week in order to just farm your weapon rolls, farm your gear that you want as well. Now, it did seem like, because for example, a friend that I did it with, he did it twice now. Well, he didn't finish it on the first run around, but he still got loot again on the second run, and it was still the same loot that he had obtained on the previous run as well. So who knows, maybe it kind of works like Trials of Osiris, where every single week there is a different loot pool available, and then you basically get random rolls outside of that loot pool that you have unlocked or something like that. We're not 100% sure. But we'll have to wait and see as we go through the weeks how that is going to progress. But basically, it's pretty cool that we can farm the dungeon. If you're really after the armor pieces, you want to get god rolls of the weapons or something like that, you can just spam the dungeon as much as you want with your friends, or solo of course, and then basically try to go get those. I'm definitely going to be doing it. I'm definitely going to be trying to get a solo flawless as well. Because it is a really cool looking dungeon. It was fun to play as well. Once I get more gear, once I get some pinnacle drops as well, when I get closer to that pinnacle cap, you can definitely expect me to go and try it as well. Now, last time around, when I did the solo flawless for the Pit of Heresy dungeon, I kind of forgot to record it. I recorded a bunch of attempts, but then when I finally cleared it, that's the one attempt that I didn't record because it was late at night. So I didn't really want to be talking all that much because the rest of my family was asleep. So I kind of ended up missing that one on camera, unfortunately enough. But for this one, definitely will be trying to get the solo flawless done. Maybe next week or the week after, depends on how my item level is looking. Definitely going to be trying it again. Now, of course, I'm not an amazing player, so I do need a little bit of help with item level, because I know Esoteric cleared it already and he had like 130 base item level or something like that, which is just crazy that he was able to pull that off. So I'm definitely going to be trying it out. Gonna be playing around with a couple of different loadouts as well, because I really want to be using that new sword actually from the season pass, because that thing is really powerful. But yeah, so there's are kind of basically some things that I'm going to be doing with the dungeon, some things that you can expect maybe on the channel as well. I was kind of expecting or like wanting this video to be a full playthrough of the dungeon itself. In the end, I decided to just make it a first impressions commentary style video, because we had to pick someone up from Looking for Group from that Discord channel, and of course I don't want to just put people on YouTube if they don't want to be there. I didn't have time to ask for his consent before we left the party. So that's why I am doing it like this instead of that just full playthrough of the dungeon. But hopefully when I do finally get that solo flawless, I'll be able to upload that one. And you can enjoy the full gameplay experience of the dungeon that way as well. Again, if you're somebody that is now interested in Destiny 2 by seeing the gameplay, by seeing me talk about it, giving it so much praise, it is free to play. It is, well, Destiny 2 is free to play for a big portion. This dungeon is part of the free to play content that you get, so definitely go hop in there and go give it a try, because it is a beautiful dungeon, not only from the aesthetics, the mechanics are pretty unique as well, with the light and darkness, up and down as well, because the third encounter just literally has you flipping around in the arena, which is really cool. Did feel like it took a little bit too long, but still was a lot of fun to do. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for me. So I want to thank you for watching, I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.